Tutorial will be on international trade. We will continue our discussion with balance of payment. Now in today's tutorial we'll move on to the foreign exchange rate, and we'll talk about the different exchange rate system, namely floating and flexible. So let us begin. Now, since exchange rate is a price, its determination can be easily explained through the demand for and supply of currencies. So suppose we consider the transaction between two countries and say the countries under question is India and USA. Now in this case, therefore, the demand for and supply of dollars is the demand for and supply for is actually the demand and supply of the foreign exchange. And when we talk it from the Indian's perspective, and this price of US dollars, that will be in terms of Indian rupees, or let me tell you, in other words, the number of dollars per Indian rupee is actually the exchange rate. So the system of exchange rate in which the value, so now we are actually moving on to the types. Okay, so I forgot to introduce the system. So there are two systems, so we'll talk about each of them one by one. So the system of exchange rate in which the value of a currency is allowed to adjust freely, or you can even say, because this word will be used later, or to float, as determined by the demand and supply of foreign exchange, is termed as the flexible exchange system, and sometimes flexible exchange system, and sometimes it is also termed as floating exchange system. Okay, now on the other hand, if this exchange rate instead of being determined by demand for and supply of foreign exchange, as we have seen in the flexible exchange rate system, is given by, or it is made fixed by the government of the country concerned, then it is termed as the fixed exchange rate system. Which actually prevailed in the world under an agreement reached as Bretton Woods. Okay, now what should be noted, now this is some extra add-ons, so just Now what you should note that under this particular system, the exchange rate is not determined by the demand for or supply of foreign exchange, but it is actually fixed, or you can use the word pegged at a certain rate. So it is predetermined by the government itself. Now at the fixed exchange rate, if there is any kind of disequilibrium, so let me say first about disequilibrium. Now in case of disequilibrium, if you have market forces to operate, that means demand and supply, as in case of the floating exchange rate, then the system will adjust. Okay, the demand and the supply curve adjust themselves and the equilibrium will be achieved. However, in this case, if there is disequilibrium in balance of payment, which give rise to either excess demand or you have excess supply of foreign exchange, then the central bank, if you consider the case of India, it will be the Reserve Bank of India. So the central bank of the country concerned has to buy, or it can sell the required quantities of foreign exchange. So, and if it is done, it will eliminate the excess demand or supply, whatever is the case. Now you must be, if you have noticed carefully that I have used the word required quantity. So why required quantity? So there will be a specific amount of quantity, and who will determine this specific, what will be this magnitude of this quantity? This will be that quantity that is can be bought or sell, so that this fixed value of exchange rate, the exchange rate that has been fixed by the government at a particular point, is maintained. So keeping this in mind, you need to determine this specific amount or quantity will actually be determined. Okay. Now both these systems, whether you talk about the fixed exchange rate or you talk about the flexible or the floating exchange rate, both have their merits and demerits. Okay. Now a related concept to this is the appreciation and depreciation of currencies. So now we will talk about two important terms that will be often used. One is appreciation and the other is depreciation. So we'll start with first the formal explanation and then an example. So let us consider the exchange rate of rupee for dollars. So when we talk about appreciation of currency, it is the increase in its value in terms of another currency. So I know it's a little bit confusing, so we'll give an example. So say if the value of the rupee in terms of US dollar increases from rupees 45.50 to say rupees 44 to a dollar, that what it means? It means earlier you need to pay 45 rupees 50 paise to get hold of $1. Now you need to pay rupees 44 to get hold of the same $1. So you need to pay less. That means Indian rupee has become stronger, or Indian rupee is said to appreciate. Okay, so what this indicate? It has actually become stronger, or it indicates the strengthening of Indian rupee. Now, one thing that must be noted is that when Indian rupee in dollar term appreciate, the other part, that means the dollar itself, would depreciate. So similarly you can do it the other way also. So say if the value of Indian rupee in terms of US dollar falls, say from this to 46 to a dollar. So now you need to pay 50 paise more to acquire a same dollar. So now the Indian rupee, instead of appreciate, it actually depreciate, and it shows not strengthening but rather weakening of Indian rupee. And thus what we see under flexible exchange rate system, the exchange value of a currency frequently appreciates or depreciates depending upon the demand and supply of a currency. So with this we wind up today's tutorial. Now in our upcoming tutorial we will see how we can determine or determination of exchange rate using the demand for foreign exchange and the supply of foreign exchange.